It is the business of cloud services, leasing, renting compute capacity to third parties, Google, Anthropic, that seems to have the most momentum right now.
Yeah, and you probably noticed they announced another deal, right? Another customer undisclosed in the beginning of 3Q. So the cloud business, by our estimates, right, it probably can end December, probably running at a $40+ billion run rate, which is obviously much higher than now and generating the bulk of revenue. So we actually feel very good about that trajectory going into year end.
Let's get to what you just mentioned, which is there was a disclosure of the cloud business in the current period. Let's listen to CFO Brett Johnson.
In the first few weeks of the third quarter, we've already contracted an additional $6.7 billion of cloud services revenue over a 6-month period that begins ramping starting in October of this year. We believe this puts us on a trajectory, including contribution from Cursor, to reach 100 billion of ARR, or annualized revenue run rate, by the end of this year.
So this is SpaceX, right? There are 3 business segments: space, AI, connectivity. But, you know, Brett was pushed, wasn't he, on what the biggest contributor to the 100 billion ARR was. And he, I think in the end, said, yeah, this is us leasing compute capacity.
Yeah, so I mean, we can do some rough math around that, right? As I just mentioned, right, we can probably pretty easily get to the 40. You have other parts of AI, right? You have Grok, X, you have the advertising businesses as well. And I think you put these pieces together, you get probably, I don't know, 0.5. You add on Cursor, which, depending on, you know, I think maybe Bloomberg has even reported on this, right, is running at a very, very fast growth rate. So you put that all together, we think you could probably get to something like 60 billion run rate, not too far from December, right, if not in December. So if you're already at 60, you need the rest of the businesses to do, by definition, right, something like 35 to 40. And we think that's achievable. And so we believe in that 100 billion ARR, and you know, obviously time will tell, but we feel pretty good.
Edison, a lot of the research that I've been reading from you of late has been on the orbital data center side. And a big piece of technology news was that SpaceX has decided to go exclusively with NVIDIA and Vera Rubin architecture. That did seem important. You know, what did you make of that and the statement that next year they will start launching that orbital data design?
Yeah, so I think there's kind of 2 angles here, right? There's the more near term we just mentioned, which is we need to deploy some prototypes, and deploying the prototypes, I would say, it's just the beginning. We need to get them up there. We need to prove it works. The real question is, how do we scale this up? And to do that, we really need to increase the volume, reduce the cost of solar, also of the radiator. So I actually don't worry too much about next year. Can we deploy some prototypes? I think the much more difficult part ultimately is the cost and scale of doing this at gigawatt level, and that's what really will be the true test, rather than kind of just getting like a couple up there.
Elon Musk said that he's pulled forward his expectation SpaceX hits $1 trillion of revenue to 2030 from 2031, and that there is a non-zero chance that that happens 2029. Are you able to model for that?
I would frame it like this. So we have a forecast out there, right? That's you can see on Bloomberg is much lower than that. And I think the way to frame it in the context of stock is to get a much higher stock value, you do not need to hit 1 trillion by 2030. If by some chance you do, the stock is worth significantly more than what it is right now, and certainly even versus our price target. We're probably modeling, call it more like a third of that. And we think that more than justifies where the stock is right now.
I mean, at the end of the day, Elon Musk said it, $1 trillion in 2030. I'm looking at consensus on the Bloomberg FA Go. It's $351 billion for the full year 2030. Should we talk about Starship to end? all of the future is predicated on Starship working and its rapid reusability. How did you digest the updates, I guess, from the call?
I think it's basically on track with our expectations, which, we're expecting it probably flies, call it 15, 20 times next year. And if you kind of triangulate, they're talking about maybe deploying 1,000 B3 satellites. You're looking at 50, 60 satellites per launch, right? You probably get into that realm. So we think there's certainly, you need to catch the second stage. You need to address some of the heat shield concerns. But in terms of the operational cadence of Starship, it is tracking roughly what we're modeling for next year. And, we will see on Flight 14, which is fairly soon, how that goes.